Hey guys, it's Thomas with Chrono24 in New York City, and the watch fairs are back. 2020 was a very tumultuous year for everyone, including the watch industry. Basel World, for example, was postponed and almost went extinct entirely. Watches Wonders 2020 had to opt for a virtual fair, which is less than ideal. Geneva Watch Days, however, was in person and on location. Chrono24 attended. We went hands-on with the brand, with the watches. We have a 4-part video series on our channel right now if you want to check it out. Now, there were a lot of watches that were released at Geneva Watch Days. We're going to go through my favorite 5 picks. You'll even see a theme running through all of them. But before we get into 1 through 5, let me remind you, Chrono24 is doing a big giveaway, $10,000. If you want to find out how to enter to win, check the link in the description below. Now, the cool thing about Geneva Watch Days is that it features a lot of smaller, more independent brands, and with that, you get a lot of bolder, a little more out there designs. Now, looking back at my top 5 picks, they all kind of have a running theme, a running current going through them, which is that they represent a concept much larger than the product itself, even larger than the human experience of the wearer. Think about why we buy military watches or space watches. It's because it represents something much greater than the product on our wrist. My top 5 today are higher concept pieces, and dare we say even a little poetic. For example, let's start with number 1, the Urwerk UR100 Electrum. Now, the case for this watch is made out of electrum, which is a gold and silver alloy that's been around for thousands of years. The case also has concentric grooves around it, which really add a little design punch to it. These can be interpreted in many different ways, reminiscent of earthen forms or kimono patterns, or even an ancient Greek amphitheater. Now, with the UR100 Electrum, you get the wandering hour display that Urwerk is famous for. You get the very bold and vibrant green and red color schemes going on here. But what sets this watch in particular apart are the 2 indicators on the sides. Take a look at the dial. You'll notice 2 indicators on the left and right. One measures the Earth's revolution around the sun, and the other measures the Earth's rotation at any given moment, which is about 10,000 miles per hour. Again, these are huge concepts, much greater than the watch itself. Now, size-wise, this watch comes in at 41 millimeters in diameter by 14 millimeters thick. It comes in a 25-piece limited edition. Price-wise, you're looking at about $68,000 US. Next up on our list is the Arnold & Son Globetrotter. Now, Arnold & Son is a small brand, and they made some of the best moon phase watches in the industry, in my opinion. Now, they've come up with a cool and quite unique world timer. Now, the main event on the dial is this God's eye view, or should we say Jeff Bezos' eye view of the Northern Hemisphere. You'll see a 24-hour ring around that. That part is actually fixed, so this kind of planetarium-style globe actually spins around 24 hours per day. The outlines of the continents here are made of superluminova. The oceans are made of a blue lacquer with mother-of-pearl dust mixed in, and you have this high beveled bridge holding the globe in place. Now, for a watch of global proportions, you're going to have a lot of wrist presence to match. We're talking 45 millimeters wide by 17 millimeters thick. Pricing and availability, you're looking a little bit under $20,000 for a limited or a non-limited edition. Now, my only qualm with the watch is that with these cool visual effects, you sacrifice legibility. If you're looking for something easier to read, transition to the Bulgari Otto Roma World Timer, watch number 3 on our list. Now, with this watch, you get a lot of the same lines and edges that you do with the Otto Finissimo, but instead of ultra thinness, you get a little more wrist presence. It runs about 11.35 millimeters thick on the wrist. For years now, Bulgari has been bolstering the mechanical side of their watchmaking business. So with this, you have an in-house world timer caliber with roughly a 42-hour power reserve. Buyers have their choice of a blue dial steel case on a steel bracelet, or you could go black dial, black DLC case on a black strap. Now, I personally have always loved the Bulgari bracelet here. It's very reptilian, wraps around the wrist so nicely. But for this one, I'm actually feeling the DLC a little bit more. I like the high contrast. The dial already has enough going on, so the black helps the important information stand out without it getting too busy. Now, a funny thing here, if you look at the dial, you'll see Bulgari has chosen quite aspirational locations for their world timer ring. You have St. Bart's, of course. You have the Maldives. I'm sure they would have thrown in Mallorca if they could. But the nice thing is you don't have to be a billionaire to own this watch. Prices run about $8,350 US. Watch number 4 on our list is the De Botton DB25 GMT Stradivarius. Now, I've had the privilege of trying on a De Botton before. It's a very small, underrated brand. I didn't feel like James Bond, but I did feel like a James Bond villain. With this watch, you have details, 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 people. We're talking a lot of depth on the dial with rings for home time, local time, and the date. A lot of finishing on the dial, both in the constellation and the engraving. Flip the watch over, you have the signature De Botton elements like the delta shape and like the Côte de Botton movement finishing. Speaking of the movement, you have some serious high horology going on here. We're talking twin self-regulating barrels with a 5-day power reserve. We're talking titanium balance wheel, titanium bridges, and of course a silicon escape wheel, to name a few. Flip the watch back over to the dial side, you will see a beautifully executed night sky right in the center. Now, the fun thing about this is that Buyers actually worked with the brand to choose their own unique night sky constellation setup, making each watch a bit of a one of one. The GMT is also unique here. You have a sphere that rotates around the dial, and it also oscillates back and forth from day to night. Now, here's the catch. With all of this beauty, all of this intricacy, all of this high octane engineering, it's gonna be a big watch for a big price. We're talking 42 millimeters by about 12. It's titanium, so it's not a huge wrist presence, but it's gonna take a lot out of your bank account at roughly $100,000 US. Now, coming back down to earth a bit, we have a watch for $2,300, and it is the Oris Aquis Date Upcycle. Now, this watch, available in 36.5 millimeters or 41.5 millimeters, is very much your standard Oris Aquis date on the inside and the case and the bracelet, but the real star here is, of course, the dials. Now, these colorful, very vibrant dials are actually made out of recycled ocean plastic. We should pause here to mention that there is an island of garbage floating in the Pacific right now. It is the size of Texas. And so while a recycled dial is not going to make a huge dent in this, Oris has long been committed to climate activism, and they actually recently achieved climate neutrality, which is a great benchmark for the industry. Now, the 36.5 millimeter version has a very bright, punchy dial versus the 41.5 millimeter version, still bold, but a little bit more subdued color palette there. You still get 300 meters of water resistance, a 38-hour power reserve, and the price is pretty reasonable as well. So there we go. Those are my top 5 picks from Geneva Watch Days 2021. Now, this is only one video, and I am only one man. So if there are watches that we missed, ones you loved, ones you hated, be sure to drop a comment below. Also, like and subscribe, and maybe even enter our giveaway. We have more videos coming all the time, so stay tuned for that. I'm Thomas with Chrono24 in New York, and enjoy your watches.